You are live. Come on down. Let's do this right here. Let's go live. Hey, everybody. Good evening. How's everybody doing? My face still looks a little banged up, y'all. I had a eyelid surgery Thursday week ago, and some of my eyes are still bruised. Pretty much the swelling's gone. Trying to get this light right. Let's see what we got going on here. See if we can do it that way. How's that? Man, I tell you what, should I put some rinse on my hair? I ain't never put any dye on my hair. Sure am getting gray, ain't I? Good heavens. Yeah, so some of you people stopping by over here on TikTok, my Facebook page is pretty small. Most of those folks know. Some of the people over on TikTok and all, I had eyelid surgery. Got my eyes all prettied up, tightened up a little bit. Takes a few weeks to get it all behind you. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm kind of over the hot weather this year. I've been over it since about beginning of July. I'm ready for some cool weather. You know, I'm ready for fall to come swooping in here and kind of get back to late fall and winter and some cool weather and get a fire going. And yeah, this hot weather. Yeah. So, but anyhow, good evening, everybody. Hello, TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. Let's see what the dogs are doing in there. Ava's on her way driving from Wilmington this afternoon. I talked to her about 30 minutes ago, and I think she was in Columbia. So once she gets to the next stop, be Augusta, and then she's a straight shot from I-20 coming home. So she's had an ordeal this last few days, out traveling, the car breaking down, and all that stuff, you know. But anyhow, good evening, TikTok. Eddie William Sellers coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. What's shaking out there in the world this evening? We're living in kind of odd times, ain't we? So I don't really have a lot to say this evening, other than I'm bored, sitting around the house. I watched, I think it's like 5 or 6 series that's on there's a series on, it's like a documentary series on Netflix that it's called something like Near-Death Experiences or Life After Death or something like it. It's like 5 or 6 episodes. And I started watching it last night. And get out from there, Gracie. You get out from there. And so I watched it all laid around in bed. Y'all ever have a weekend of just doing nothing? I just really, I've got a Key Road house I needed to go work on. I got other stuff I needed to do. And with Ava gone, I just decided I ain't doing nothing this weekend. So I just kind of laid around, watched TV, ate ice cream sandwiches and cookies, and laid on the bed and flipped channels and played on TikTok. And I think sometimes our body just needs that. I think our mind needs that sometimes just as a break. So anyhow, on that series about I'm ready for the heat to be gone there. School's then started back. It's time for the heat to get back behind us, and us starting to have some cool weather come in. But yeah, in that series about near death or life after death or something, it was very interesting, well done about, nobody can actually say anything about it, but there's just weird, odd things that happens around the passing of somebody. And even the final episode of it, like the fifth or sixth episode was that, you know, this professor at the University of Virginia who interviewed children that's 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 years old, but had really extreme recollections of being someone else in a previous life, and they knew who their mother was, knew who they were, what happened to them. And it is odd, isn't it? It is. My daughter Heather, she tells me, like, my God, Daddy, you write about and talk about death a lot. What's up with all that? I find the hereafter fascinating. That's what it is. A lot of people find it morbid or, you know, uncomfortable. I kind of find it fascinating, you know, that somebody could have been somebody else in a former life, or when we leave here, we linger around and kind of make sure our people on this side's kind of okay. And to me, thank you there, Stephanie. I think they're gonna be fine. If I get down like in the TikTok lens, you can see the stitches. See those stitches right there? I don't want to gross nobody out, but you can see where they cut them and pull them up. And to be honest about it, I did it mainly because Medicare will pay for it. They won't pay for the bottom eyes. If I ever want to get these kind of straightened out, you have to pay about. Y'all listen to this. The top part, those two little eyelids, the bill was over $10,000 to do that. And my part of it under Medicare was $230 something, you know? And so if I wanted to get these bottom sacks ever tightened up a little bit, you know, where they can do the same thing, you know, smooth them out, about $12,000, you know, and ain't never going to happen. And insurance won't pay for it because it's cosmetic. But what was I saying then? But I do find those series and documentaries about other phenomena and other experiences. It's kind of fascinating, isn't it? And I went over to this morning. I went over to the place I go on Sundays. I've been going maybe 10 or 12 years now. A place called Metron, and it's a meditation group. We don't have worship. It's kind of a meditation teaching. I don't know what it is, but I know that there's something about it that feeds my energy, feeds my soul. And I know that, like this morning, it was about the other things that's paranormal and spiritual and the gifts of the spirit and how we operate in things and things that come to us. You know, even like Loretta Lynn, you know, there's a scene in Coal Miner's Daughter. Yeah, Tricia, it's manna. Yeah, that's I think Tricia saying when I say, I don't know what Metron is, it's just kind of manna. It kind of feeds my spirit. And, but there's a scene in Coal Miner's Daughter where Loretta Lynn, and she told the story years on the country circuits, whatever. There's a scene in Coal Miner's Daughter where she's sitting out in Oregon or somewhere where her and her husband had moved, and she got a aberration or something that let her dad. She saw her dad walking across the front yard, and she knew her dad had died. And I don't think she had a phone. And then a few days later, at that time that she saw that, Sissy Spacek played her in the movie. She found out her dad had passed. And my cousin Annette, who's still alive right now, she told me years ago, my Aunt Mary, some of y'all that follow me and read my book, y'all know my kind of family and some of the Granny Bratchers and Granny Sellers and different people in my family. But Annette, when Mary died, she lived out in Tucker, I believe it was. And she told me that we knew Mary was sick. We didn't know she was dying. Mary had cancer. She died at 49 years old, and the firstborn child of my Granny Bratcher. And it told me that her mother, before they called and told her that Mary had died, she told me, she said, Eddie, Mama came to me as clear as day. And she told me, said, Annette, I'm going home. You need to look after your brother. Mayor had 2 children, Annette and Jimmy. Jimmy passed a year or so ago, my cousin Jimmy Sellers. And but Annette, she told me, she said her mama came to her and told her, said that, Annette, I'm going home. And you look out for your brother Jimmy. You know, Jimmy was younger than Annette. And there was just something to me. I remember even as I think I was 16 or 17 then, when Annette told me that, it just sent chills down my arm, because I knew she was not just making stuff up. There's a spiritual realm, a spiritual dimension. We're walking in parallel vibrations and energies where there's life and death and energy and negativity and positivity. It's kind of like walking through a field of all kinds of things that's happening at the same time. Our past is happening, our future is happening, the present is happening, and we're just kind of in a swirl of all this. At least that's what I kind of feel like a lot of times. And another room. And so we've had, watching this documentary today and watching these things about, reincarnation. Everybody's got a right to believe whatever you feel in your spirit to believe, whatever you feel in your soul to believe. That's your privilege. You don't owe your intuitions and your spiritual well-being or growth to any other doctrines or people. Those are very personal things. And I know my first morning that I woke up in Paris, I woke up right about daybreak. And I've got a picture of a room that I was in Paris. This was several years back. I've been to Paris several times since then. But in our room, I had these windows that's like on the dormers or whatever. And I opened up the windows, and it was just getting daylight. And I stood there, and I had the windows open. I think I slept with them open that night. I did. And it was like on the second and third floor. All the little buildings in Paris are kind of like 2-story, 3-story little buildings. Then not much more than that. And but I remember standing in that window and looking out across the little neighborhood in Paris we was in. And it was so deja vu. I'm like, oh my God, I've been here before. This is not my first visit here. I've been here before. I could smell it. I could feel it. There was something about it. And so I thought this morning, I think and listening to Jim teach this morning, I think the thing I sat there and just kind of hear me out with this. I think the thing that really kind of spoke to my spirit this morning was that he was describing a couple of supernatural events that happened down at St. Simon's a couple of weeks ago in a room. We wasn't able to meet on the beach one evening. We were meeting in what we call an upper room at a hotel. And there was 35, 40 of us there. And there was a couple of little supernatural things that happened in that room. Not almost, it was kind of like the old school gifts of the Spirit in operation. And even the Bible spoke about, God gave out gifts among men. One thing I will say about being raised up among Pentecostal and Apostolic people, as opposed to Baptist and Catholic and Presbyterian, Methodist, Lutheran, Episcopalian, the list is 45,000 different versions of Christianity. The thing about being raised up around 2 grandmothers who were tongue-talking, Holy Ghost-filled, operating in the gifts of the Spirit women, a bunch of aunts on both sides of those grandmothers, Bratchers and Sellers, who also were prophetess. My Aunt Corrine, I realized this about people that operated in the gifts of the Spirit. The more, I don't want to use the word mental, but the more odd, let's say that the more odd someone's personality is, the easier it seemed for them to tap into a spiritual thing. And I know from a lot of you people that's watching this, Thank you, Stephanie, telling folks about my eye surgery because I'm feeling this now. I'll come out over here because I was bored, but let's go ahead and talk about this. The most spiritual gifts of the Spirit people I knew in the operation of the church back in the day were people who other people are like, they're odd. They're just kind of odd, ain't they? But yet they can say, for the Lord saith, yea, 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 yah, 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 in Jesus' name. Boy, they could just tap into something that would you're like, my God, that's interesting, isn't it? So, but being raised up around two grandmothers who were Holy Ghost filled, as they called it back then, speaking in tongues, prophetic women, who on both sides had daughters that were prophetess. My Granny Bratcher had a son who was a preacher, John Bratcher, Bud Bratcher. My Granny Sellers had her husband, my Eddie Williams Sellers, the original. He was a preacher. But being raised up among all that, if you can go with me, some of you people my age, if you can go with me back into the 60s, right up across the road from me right here is a place called Lakewood. And it was called the Lakewood Fairgrounds. There wasn't a week in the summer that a big tent wasn't put up over there in Lakewood Fairgrounds. And you had Oral Roberts, you had A.A. Allen, you had all these great faith healers that was coming across the country. People by the tens of thousands. Thank you there, Stephanie. People that's by the tens of thousands. If you go back and look at the old black and whites, hundreds of thousands of people hungered for a spiritual move. Here's what I thought about this morning in the meeting at Metron this morning, among a group of some of the most awakened and enlightened people I've ever been around, who are open-minded and who flow with a new thinking and a new thought. People then were hungry for a spiritual move. And by spiritual move, they wanted to see the crippled healed. They wanted to see blind eyes open. They wanted to see the oppressed being delivered. And I know, believe me, it all collapsed because there was a lot of money to be made and there was a lot of shady preachers around. I heard stories of big time evangelists after the big tent revivals in Lakewood would meet at a hotel in downtown Atlanta and set up all night doing cocaine from the horse's mouth. So, and you know, all the other stuff that goes along with that, the sex parties and so forth, people begin to catch on to it. It's a bunch of snake oil. But let me just say this. It's not that we're a people that need to see gifts and miracles in order to connect with vibrations and energies of God. But by the same token, I get the sense that when you watch, if you just scroll through TikTok or Facebook or Instagram and you just all these tens of thousands of churches are online now, you watch the services. My question is, where is the gifts in operation and the gifts of where people are getting little tidbits of bread that let them know that God is all powerful? It's hard to believe that God is a miracle working God as he is proclaimed to be, and yet you never see a miracle around the church that you go to. You see, it's a conundrum. But yet when we do see that, our spirit is fed by it. We want more of that, you know. And even the years ago, you know, we had Trish, I get that too. You see, my Granny Bratcher would say what Trish said on Facebook. She said, for everything that's real, there is a counterfeit. Y'all, I had somebody come in and pay with $100 bill a few months ago at the shop, and I didn't think nothing about it. I went up to get a haircut at, I know I'm going on a tangent with this, get a haircut at Super Clips at that Kroger. My haircut was $18. I put it on my card. I had that $100 bill out of the cash register. A little Latino girl, something just spoke to my spirit, said, just give her the $100. And I usually don't say that but this is part of the story. I paid for my haircut on my little card. Then I just hand her the 100 as a tip. And I could tell it just really blessed her. Well, about a week later, the boss up there called me and said, Mr. Sells, you tipped one of our haircutters $100. She went to the bank with it. It was counterfeit. I'm like, oh my God. She has to think I'm the biggest butthole in Atlanta. So look at Mr. Big Shot coming here giving me a fake $100 tip like he's something. And I said, is she working? He said, yeah. I said, tell her I'll be up there in 5 minutes. And I got 520s out of the cash register. And I went up there. I said, ma'am, I am so sorry. I just got that out of the cash register. I had no idea, and I gave her her $100. I mean, that wasn't even the story. But like Tricia said over there is a counterfeit to everything that's real, and we heard that. So from what I understand, I'm not really a part of the church world no more, and I haven't. But what are you eating? I'm not really a part of the church world scene no more. I haven't been in a church like a Pentecostal church. I haven't been in one for years. I went to a funeral back 7 or 8 years ago, somebody at an apostolic church, and it kind of creeped me out. I'm like, oh my God, this is creepy, like a big old cult around here. And so I'm in that conundrum where I'm like, boom, boom, give me that. Boom, boom's chewing on something. I don't want him to swallow that. So I'm in a conundrum where, a lot of us that came out of church, we throw all of it out. Like they said, don't throw the baby out with the dishwater. I don't know. But that's an old Southern saying. A lot of us want no part of that. But as I sat there this morning, I thought about this. There's a great enlightened movement going around churches. I know it's all through Atlanta and probably all through any city, Cincinnati, Miami. There's an enlightened movement going on where people are being awakened to new ways of thinking and new ways of seeing God. And but what you don't really see in this, at least not what I'm seeing in it, is any of the operations of the supernatural. That's what I'm trying to get, the supernatural. We witness every day the naturalness of God, the wind blowing, the rainbow, the hummingbirds, this green grass out here in front of me, the chill of a morning dew, an ocean smell. We witness all the naturalness of the energy and vibration that a lot of us perceive as God. The heavens, the scripture says that the heavens speak of the glory of God. Psalm of David said, my Father owns 1,000 cattle and all the hills thereon. Beside the still waters, he restoreth my soul. All the natural vibrations and energies of God. What you don't see in 2025 is operations of the gifts of the Spirit, in this awakened movement. I don't know, will there come a time in a time of restoration? Will there come a time in a time of revival where the supernatural effects of the energies and vibrations of the Almighty connect with the awakening part of a deeper way of looking at God, and behave, boo boo, boom boom, Rhonda. So let me just say this also. Hey TikTok. Hey all y'all. I'm really not paying much attention to comments. I'm just kind of talking. I didn't really have nothing to say, but I guess that it's kind of weird. You don't have nothing to say, and then all of a sudden you start talking. You realize, well, I got some stuff bottled up on my spirit. I was over 2 or 3 days ago, and in this awakened place that we're at, and I'm just going to be honest about this right here. I went by the Cabbagetown house, my daughter Jill's house, the other day, and her mother was over there, Kathy. And some of you people that follow me know my story. Me and Kathy were married for 20 years. We've been divorced now for 25 years. It's weird, isn't it, how the years go by? So Kathy follows my videos that I post in my TikTok, and she's still very much a part of my life. If she's ever, when she went through her breast cancer here a couple of years ago, she very much believes I have the anointing to pray that God can move through me, that God can touch people through me, and which for people that have that for me, it's a very special place that you feel anointed to speak into people's lives when they're going through something. Thank you there, Betty Smith. So anyhow, we're sitting at the Cabbagetown house 2 or 3 days ago, and she asked me, she said, I'm going to ask you something. And she said, do you still believe in Jesus? And I'm like, yes, but not in the way I used to. She said, do you still believe that there is a God? I'm like, yes, I think I do. But not in the way that I used to think of God. And let me just say this to you. I was raised up around a people that would brag on the fact that, well, my granny was Baptist, my mama was Baptist, and I'll be Baptist till the day I die, which would close any door of the possibility of them being enlightened any more beyond what their granny was, what their mama was. For me and millions of other people who may even consider themselves former Christians around the world, let me see that. Yeah, for millions of other people around the world, we outgrew a lot of that. Yeah, that's why I don't want to read comments. It throws me off on them. So, yeah, most people, we used to sing songs in church. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. It's good enough for me. It was good enough for mama. It was good enough for granny. Give me that old time. Y'all, spirituality should be flowing, should be something that's moving, should be something that's ever changing, should be something that's carrying us to deeper places. Even Paul, he said that he went up even into the third heaven and had heard languages that he couldn't even speak on earth. And it's not that we need those extraordinarily spiritual encounters, but when we are around them, it instigates something in us that starts to come alive, And so anyway, I guess what I'm saying in this, when Kathy asked me that, I said, no, I don't believe at this point. I hope, maybe. I don't believe at this point that when I get to heaven, I'll meet a 33-year-old former Jewish man with nail scars in his hand that was Jesus the Christ, who has long hair and all that. I don't, the reason I don't believe I don't need that. That doesn't satisfy anything in me to meet that. If it's happened, he's there on the other side of life and I run into Jesus, I'd be like, well, cool. There's Jesus. God is bigger than Jesus. God is bigger than God. God is bigger than religion. God is bigger than the Bible. God is the very vibration of life, and the very energy that swirls within all this. So anyhow, let me just say this and I'll get off of here. I would like to see I would like to see, revival's not the right word. I would like to see people that's more bold. She's Roro. Ava's in Columbia, driving back to Atlanta this evening. Yeah, she's been gone this week. She'll be back tonight. Hey, TikTok. Hey, Facebook, Instagram. I got a little wound up talking about all that. But I would like to, there was something about intent revivals. Here, the need for healing, the need for answers in the spirit realm is still out there. There's still a hunger for it. And there was something about seeing faith healers back in the day, which I know a lot of you people are like, oh, they're a bunch of scum bums and just, ripping people out in snakes. For those of us that were out there in that, some of that, we saw things that could not be explained. We saw things happen that was supernatural. We saw things that wasn't made up. We saw things where people were set free, and somehow that all of that is gone. You don't even ever, in a city like Atlanta, you don't never even hear about somebody's coming to the Civic Center to run a weekend revival. You used to have all these TV personalities come and do that. Leroy Jenkins, Ernest Ainsley, all that stuff's gone now. That's not coming back. But you know what may come back? You might have enlightened, awakened men and women who are walking up on a vibrational energy level that could also speak to those on the other side and have spiritual gifts operating among the masses. and yeah, if that should happen, you'll have all the counterfeit people come in and try to pretend they can heal and they can this and that and the other. And, that's the way it's going to be. But anyway, I would say this. I'm open to the gifts of the Spirit. I'm open to the operations of the Spirit. I'm open to every good thing, and when I talked earlier about my cousin Annette and her mother Mary, when Mary died, my Aunt Mary died, I'll just finish with this, y'all, and I'll get off of here. When my Aunt Mary died, I always perceived that my Granny Bratcher loved Mary, her daughter Mary, more than any of her other children. She loved Mary. And when Mary died at 49, and this death happened among a bunch of grandmother and aunts who were prophets and prophetess, believed that God could do miracles and raise the dead and do all these things. But when Mary died, my people started saying, Granny's slipping a bit. Granny was still a fairly young woman then. I think she was maybe 60. 57, 60, because she had Mary when she was about 14 and 15, and maybe she was 65. But when Mary died, they became this ritual with Granny for 2 weeks after she died. That my Granny lived on Gaskell Street, and her bed there was a 3-room house, and Corinne's bed was in the front room, and Granny's bed was in the middle room, and then there was the kitchen there. And the sun would come in her window about 5 o'clock every evening. Well, Granny would go sit on her bed and talk to Mary. And Granny Bratcher said, my Aunt Mary came every afternoon about the time the sun came through the window and sat at the side of her bed, and she would talk to Mary. Well, somebody told me, Granny loved me and I love Granny, said, Eddie, you need to talk to her. Said, I think she's slipping a bit. Said she swears up and down that Mary comes and sits with her on her bed every afternoon, and they sitting there and talk. You can hear Granny talking to her. So I asked, talked to Granny about it. And I said, Granny, I said, everybody thinks your mind's bad. I said, they think you're slipping a little bit. I said, Granny, nobody believes Mary's coming sitting on your bed. She told me and I believed her. She told me, she said, whether anybody ever believes me or not, said, my Mary comes and sees me every afternoon. And said, she just sits on my bed. She don't really talk to me. It just makes me feel good that she's sitting here on the bed with me. And I believed her. That went on for about 2 weeks, and then it stopped. And Granny said she left. Is that, y'all, we can think people's cuckoo. We can think people makes up stuff. We can think people can grieve so hard they imagine the unimaginable. Who are we to say that that's not true? Who are we to say that them on the other side couldn't come sit on the side of our bed? Especially like in Granny Bratcher's case, they were grieving and hurting over the loss of someone. It gave Granny great comfort in that. So anyhow, that's all I got to say. Don't put nothing past God. That's all I'll say. It was real to her, Betty. Don't put nothing past the supernatural. Don't put nothing past whatever this energy vibration, whatever this is that we call God. And finally, when Kathy asked me, I said, do you still believe in a God? I said, I don't believe in the God that I used to be, in the way that, there's the Father, and then there's the Son, Jesus, and they're sitting on the throne and they're talking back. I said, I just kind of outgrew all that Christianity type of God, Jewishness and all. I believe God is my grandchildren. I believe God is that lady at the Home Depot that was kind to me the other day. I believe God's bigger than a Jewish father and son and stories about that. I do believe in God more than I've ever believed in God, but I'm older and wiser than I've ever been also. And I've had the substance of living 70 years of life and experiencing the pitfalls and the highs and the lows of life, So, yeah. Is there something more supernatural than the soul of man? I believe there is. I believe we just walk in it. I was just walking one evening a couple of weeks ago, and Ava said, oh, my God. And I looked back, and there was a rainbow that was right behind me over my head. And as I looked up, I just busted out crying right there in the middle of the street. There was something about that transcended in my spirit, this earth that I'm walking on. I drove down to Lake Hartwell back 7 or 8 years ago when they had the total eclipse about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And me and Kathy and Jill and Savannah and Ava, and we all was rented this place on Lake Hartwell where it would be right under the eclipse. And all of a sudden the eclipse happened. It was dark as night. You couldn't see your hand in front of you. And when it started back and that, what they call the diamond ring started to show, I just started crying. I'm like, oh my God, I've seen this many times. I've been to this. I've seen this eclipse that's rare, happens once every winter. I was crying and I told my daughter Jill, I said, I've been here before. I've seen this before. Just like that morning in Paris when I looked out, I'm like, I've been here before. This is weird. I've been here before. Yeah. It's odd, isn't it? I like that my brain, my mind, my spirit, my soul, I like that I'm open to all that. If I'm under a tent ever again and a preacher calls this lady out and says, Sister, God has shown me you have something wrong in your neck, and I speak healing over you right now, I believe that. I want to believe that. I want to believe that love can heal people. The power of this, whatever this is, can heal people. So anyway, y'all, let me get off of here. Good Sunday evening, everybody. I'm just passing time waiting for Ava to get home. So she should be getting here about 9 or 9:30. I haven't been going, I'd gotten into a little thing also where that I was going out in my little garden house and in the evening maybe singing a little verse or something or praying a little bit or saying a little prayer. I got an enormous response of emails from people like when I was do pray in the evening from the garden house. It's too hot to go in that garden house. It's hot in there right now. Once it cools down a little bit where I can go in there and bring all my plants in and go sit in the garden house, I do think I want to have an evening of prayer a lot of evenings. Praying makes me feel good. Just praying for others makes me feel even better. Yeah. Love y'all. Y'all go on and see what's on Netflix now. I'm going to get off here. Thank y'all. See y'all.